This is Rummy's Corner. Coming up on September 14th at the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada, in a super middleweight championship bout that will be streamed live on DAZN pay-per-view, undefeated challenger Edgar Berlanga will square off against unified and lineal world super middleweight champion, the one and only Canelo Alvarez. Canelo turned 34 last month, which is not especially old in today's boxing landscape, especially north of 160. But unlike most elite boxers in their mid-30s in the modern era, Canelo has already had a long and arduous career competing at the championship level. Canelo won his first major world championship all the way back in March 2011 when he beat Matthew Hatton by 12-round unanimous decision to win the vacant WBC junior middleweight title. He defended that title 6 times, which included a lopsided unanimous decision victory against Hall of Fame boxer Sugar Shane Mosley, who was at the tail end of his career, while Canelo was still improving and fine-tuning his craft. Canelo suffered his first professional loss against the great Floyd Mayweather Jr. in September 2013. Going into that one, a sizable number believed this would represent a passing of the torch moment, but instead it wound up being an absolute masterclass performance from Floyd. The 36-year-old Mayweather thoroughly outclassed the 23-year-old Canelo. Officially, Floyd won a majority decision, where one judge inexplicably scored the fight a draw, but Floyd controlled the action with a sublime blend of skills, smarts, and impeccable timing. Even though Floyd was pretty much universally recognized as the greatest boxer in the world, the pound-for-pound king of boxing, in a day and age where the boxing world places an overemphasis on being undefeated with the almighty zero, a lot of fans wrote him off. And I confess, I was largely guilty of this too, insofar that I never believed Canelo would go on to achieve all that he has since accomplished. 2+ years and 3 wins later after losing against Floyd, Canelo beat Miguel Cotto to win the WBC and Lineal World Middleweight Championship. And after winning this fight, tremendous demand for a showdown between Canelo and Gennady Golovkin ensued. But Canelo claimed he was not yet ready for a fight at 160, with his victory against Cotto coming at a contractually agreed upon 155-pound limit. Canelo then had another fight at 155, or as his critics called it, Canelo weight, where he scored a highlight reel knockout against Amir Khan. Then he dropped back down to 154 and won the WBO belt against Liam Smith. Then Canelo beat Chavez Jr., and people were critical of this one because this one happened at a catch weight of 164, north of middleweight. The long-awaited showdown between Canelo and Gennady took place in September 2017, 2 months shy of 2 years after demand first took off. In a highly controversial outcome, that fight was ruled a draw, where most observers believed Golovkin clearly deserved the victory. Making the verdict even more controversial was the fact that one judge, Adelaide Bird, inexplicably scored the fight 118 to 110 in favor of Canelo, a scorecard that in no way, shape, or form reflected the action that transpired in the ring. 1 day shy of 1 year to the day, Canelo and Golovkin had a rematch, and this one wound up being very different from their first encounter. The big difference between this fight and the first fight stemmed from a huge strategic gamble by Canelo, a gamble that paid big dividends for middleweight supremacy. Canelo was still looking to counter and get off first whenever he could, but this time around he used far less movement, keeping things at mid-range where he still held a tactical advantage. But by holding his ground, he conserved energy while still maintaining the necessary execution of solid countering and getting off first whenever he could. Canelo still had some lulls in activity, but by keeping in range, he was able to pick and choose his spots wisely while preventing Golovkin from establishing his trademark forward aggression. At the end of 12 rounds of action, Canelo was awarded a 12-round majority decision. This verdict was a little controversial too for some, but it was a close and competitive affair that reasonably could have gone either way, and this one went Canelo's way. To me, this was the beginning of Canelo entering his peak form. The Golovkin rematch was the first fight where he truly began elevating his game to new heights. After that, he beat Rocky Fielding at 168, and then he moved back down to 160, and he won a 12-round unanimous decision and a unification bout against Daniel Jacobs. After that, Canelo moved all the way up to 175, where he scored a dramatic late-round knockout against Sergey Kovalev. And with that victory, Canelo won the WBO light heavyweight title. Kovalev may have no longer been the menacing crusher he once was, but Canelo still made a huge statement in this one. After that, Canelo had a mighty impressive run at 168. That started in December 2020 when Canelo won a lopsided 12-round unanimous decision against WBA champion Callum Smith. With that victory, in addition to winning Smith's WBA belt, Canelo also won the vacant WBC belt. Canelo made a mandatory defense a few months later, and then he earned the stoppage victory against Billy Joe Saunders to add the WBO belt to his existing collection. In November 2021, Canelo scored the stoppage against Caleb Plant, which added the only missing piece of the puzzle, the IBF belt. So between December 2020 and November 2021, a span that lasted less than 11 months, Canelo beat 3 talented undefeated champions to become the first undisputed world super middleweight champion in history. Less than 11 months and Canelo had become the undisputed king of 168. In his next bout, Canelo lost a 12-round unanimous decision against Dimitri Bivol, and despite the close scorecards, that one was pretty one-sided. Canelo had previously proven that he could compete with the elite at 175 when he beat Kovalev, but Bivol's incredible defense combined with his slick, accurate offense left Canelo more than a bit befuddled throughout much of the contest. The rematch never came together at 175 or 168, and Canelo resumed defending his undisputed crown at 168. First, he won a 12-round unanimous decision in his trilogy fight against Golovkin. And this was a much different fight than their first 2 encounters, where Canelo had been on the best run of his career, and Golovkin was getting older and slowing down. Canelo won the fight decisively, and there was no controversy whatsoever this time around. But Golovkin finished the fight strong, whereas Canelo appeared to fade a bit later in the fight. As much as I believe the second fight with Golovkin represented the beginning of Canelo entering his peak form, I believe his third fight with Golovkin represented the conclusion of his peak form. In other words, I think despite the loss against Bivol, by this point it was clear that Canelo was no longer the guy he was even a year or more earlier when he was coasting through 168. By this point, the one fight fans wanted to see at 168 involving Canelo was a showdown against David Benavidez. But for various reasons, that one has never come together. Canelo continued defending his undisputed crown at super middleweight, winning a 12-round unanimous decision against John Ryder. Then he won another 12-round unanimous decision, this one against 154-pound undisputed champion Jermell Charlo. And then in his most recent bout, he won yet another 12-round unanimous decision, this time against Jaime Munguia. That one happened in May of this year, and that is where Canelo currently stands. Although it should be noted that Canelo is no longer technically undisputed. Canelo was stripped by the IBF last month. And on that note, let me tell you, my estimation of the IBF as an alphabet organization has plummeted. The IBF is the place undisputed reigns go to die. First, they unceremoniously stripped Bud Crawford a mere 4 months after he beat Spence Jr. to become the first undisputed world welterweight champion in the modern 4-belt era. Then they strong-armed Alexander Usyk to the point that he vacated the IBF belt a little over a month after he became the first undisputed world heavyweight champion in the modern 4-belt era. And now with Canelo, they stripped him. And not only was he the first undisputed world super middleweight champion during the modern 4-belt era, but he was the first undisputed world super middleweight champion during the relatively short history of the division. At least Canelo technically got the opportunity to defend his undisputed crown 4 times, which is a record in the modern 4-belt era, as is the fact that he has won 5 fights where all 4 belts and the lineage were on the line in any weight class. Circling back to my original point here, Canelo may have only just turned 34 years old, but he has had a long and arduous career at the championship level. And honestly, since suffering his loss against Bivol, Canelo seems to be shifting his career trajectory somewhat, where the calculation on risk versus reward is beginning to shift hugely toward minimizing the risk. Because the truth is, aside from the possible exception of the trilogy match with Triple G, the simple fact is Canelo has not been involved in fights that are getting anyone but die-hard Canelo fans especially excited. Fans have wanted to see the showdown with Benavidez for years now, but it hasn't come together. Canelo is a bona fide boxing superstar and has been the sport's most popular elite attraction throughout most, if not all, of the post-Mayweather-Pacquiao era. Look, Canelo has paid his dues. Canelo is undeniably a future first ballot Hall of Famer, no question whatsoever. Canelo can do whatever he wants for the remainder of his career. As far as I'm concerned, he has earned that right. But Canelo is getting older, he no longer seems especially hungry, he no longer seems to be as eager to get involved in big fights that could perhaps enhance his legacy, and he commands enough star power that he's always going to get paid well. Canelo is in the Frank Sinatra stage of his career. He can do it his way. And his recent quasi-quarrel on social media with Turki Al-Sheikh kinda highlights this fact. Neither Turki nor Canelo need each other at this point in time, though it would seem they can easily enter into a mutually beneficial arrangement, where Turki could feature boxing's biggest attraction, or at the very least biggest non-heavyweight attraction, to headline one of his stacked cards. The point is, if Berlanga has any hope going into this one, it is predicated on the fact that Canelo is older, Canelo is slowing down, Canelo has had a long career at the elite level, and Canelo no longer seems as hungry as he was on his peak form run, which I believe began and ended with his second and third fights against Gennady Golovkin. If there is going to be a time where Canelo is a bit vulnerable, due to being underprepared and in a state where he is underestimating the challenge before him, the recipe for that perfect storm scenario where the stars could not be better aligned seems to be right now. Berlanga's record is a perfect one, with 22 victories and 17 wins coming by way of knockout. Berlanga won his first 16 fights by knockout, all of them by first-round knockout, but most of them against overmatched opposition. Once he started fighting 10 and 12 rounders, the knockout power seemed less impressive than his early run indicated. Berlanga had won 5 unanimous decisions in a row, including victories against Steve Rolls, Alexis Angulo, and also Jason Quigley. In his most recent bout back in February, Berlanga scored a 6th-round knockout against Padraig McCrory. This was the first stoppage win for Berlanga since his first-round knockout streak had ended more than 3.5 years ago. Berlanga is not without skills, however. Berlanga is a good body puncher, and he has a pretty good jab, although at times I don't think he utilizes it as well or as often as he should. But he is a better all-around boxer when he uses his jab more, and he is capable of throwing some nice crisp 1-2s, especially when he's more active with his jab. Berlanga also exhibits patience with good punch selection, although again here, sometimes he might be a bit too selective with his output, which at times leads to prolonged lulls in activity. Berlanga also has a pretty good understanding of distance and range, but despite his ability to discover his ideal range, his ability to be elusive is often lacking. Berlanga is very much a rhythm fighter, and once he finds his rhythm and gets into a groove, he is often able to create favorable momentum, although the flip side has at times proven true too. In his last fight against McCrory, after a few rounds he found his rhythm, and he started having a lot of success which led to the stoppage victory. So Berlanga does have some skill and talent, and if he were ever going to have a chance against an elite talent like Canelo, if there was ever going to be a perfect storm scenario where Canelo is getting older and slowing down, becoming comfortable as his career begins to wind down, where he seems to lack the hunger and drive that made him such an exceptional champion stretching more than a decade, the time for such a window of opportunity would seem to be now. Beyond that, Berlanga will enter the ring with the confidence and mindset that come with being an undefeated boxer who's getting the opportunity of a lifetime. But at the end of the day, even if Canelo is underprepared and underestimating Berlanga, and even if he is slowed down considerably since his last fight against Munguia, honestly, I still don't like Berlanga's chances in this one. Simply put, in my honest opinion, I believe even an uninspired declining version of Canelo will prove too much for Berlanga. So for my official prediction, I am taking Canelo Alvarez by 5th round stoppage. While I do think Canelo is declining, he is still an elite pound for pound talent, and I believe he will prove that. But as always, what the hell do I know? I ain't exactly Quasimodo over here. But I'm taking Canelo Alvarez in round 5, and best of luck to both Canelo Alvarez and Edgar Berlanga. September 14th, and this one will be available on both Prime and DAZN pay-per-view. For anyone out there who is not currently subscribed to DAZN, I have left a link in the description here. Simply click the link in the description to sign up for DAZN. So who do you think will win the upcoming fight between Canelo Alvarez and Edgar Berlanga? Please share your thoughts in the comments section. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed and have a wonderful night. This is Rummy's Corner.
You know, Quasimodo predicted all this.